Breaking news as this comes down about 6:45 a.m. Central Time on this Thursday, the 7th of August. Donald Trump with a Truth Social post with another executive order by tweet-ish thing. Here's how it reads. I have instructed the Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census based on modern day facts and figures and, importantly, using the results from the information gained from the presidential election of 2024. People who are in our country illegally will not be counted in the census. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, this is literally a truth that came down moments ago, and as I was watching CNN with their glitches this morning, they popped it in there in the middle of the discussion. And so we don't really understand what this means, but from the very quick responses that some articles got to us, we're able to pull some details and get you this call to basically get undocumented immigrants out of the apportionment for the nation is something that's not necessarily old. In fact, there's an executive order on the books on the 21st, I think, was written or signed by the president to basically work on that and get the illegals out of the census. But having this put there as a instruction for the Department of Commerce for right now, based off 2024 data, is something that's a bit of a, let's say, a push, if you will. This is going on directly what was happening in Texas and maybe what may happen in California, as Texas is trying to redraw its map and redraw its districts to get more Republicans for the midterms coming up in 18 months. We're looking at Donald Trump essentially is calling for a census right now instead of per the constitutional every 10 years. And while there are some backups on the original thought process of the census as they were growing the nation at the beginning, it turned into something that wasn't really needed all that often because it's a whole lot of work, even in these days. So this Truth Social post is essentially him leading that case for only American citizens being counted for the purpose of congressional representation. He's said that before. Now, the biggest thing is analyzing the data from 2024 because he believes it proves his mandate is win. And then, of course, he keeps saying he won everything. And it also proves that in the last count, how many people who were undocumented were basically tracked so they can basically get them out of the numbers. It would basically make our nation smaller because the actual people who are citizens would be counted versus people non-citizens. And the non-citizen count would not exist. So essentially, you would basically do his work for ICE and show people who are citizens, who are not, and I guess something like Starship Troopers. Hopefully, have them fight in the military to, in a war to gain citizenship or something odd like that. I don't know. He argues that counting undocumented immigrants for redistricting unfairly increases political power in states with large immigrant populations, causes a distortion of the democratic process. The problem is, if you have a large group of people who don't get counted, that means those places don't get resources for those people. You are punishing the people who live there by punishing the immigrants altogether, making it worse for everyone instead of taking care of the people that are there. It's not something that's new, unfortunately. It's not something that's even outlandish for Donald Trump. Of course, he's fighting the 14th Amendment because he wants to make sure that non-citizens don't get any rights. So people born here in the United States, which is basically how it's been negotiated, how it's been understood, don't have the rights of American citizens. This stops anchor baby type stuff, essentially. But the problem is, if you weren't an original colonist and then you were born here, that's how you're a citizen. And this 14th Amendment thing also gives me the right to be a citizen because I wasn't, or my ancestors weren't, when slavery was abolished, because we were property. You forget that thing sometimes. Now, this can be viewed as a corrective step to ensure political representation based on citizenship. It could be, and it could be seen as a part of Trump's immigration platform to bolster that up if you want to support Trump on this. The critics are basically saying it's not going to work because of the 14th Amendment. It just is there. And it also risks undercounting communities and leading to lost federal funding and misrepresentation. If you don't count all the people that are there, you don't have enough resources for there, whether they are documented or not. And no clear data is going to show that it's going to link undocumented individuals to the outcome to the election. It just isn't going to happen. Undocumented folks didn't vote, so obviously they had no say into the matter. Why this is exactly as it is, it's only a Donald Trump thing to answer. But the directive sets up another potential legal and political clash over who gets counted as American and who decides who is American. It signals Trump's continued focus on immigration and electoral influence in central issues ahead of the 2016 midterms, literally next year, and the potential for the 2020 candidacy for whoever is going to run for presidency on either side. And we still have 3 years to figure out whether Trump will figure out a loophole for that one as well. If you're not worried about the American experiment, and I can't think of any time in my lifetime where anything was just so outlandish. We always had other countries doing outlandish things to say, well, good thing we're us and we couldn't do anything that bad. I didn't live through the 60s and live through the civil rights era. I obviously didn't live through the Civil War and those type of things, as slavery was abolished pretty much around the world, and we were the last ones holding on to it because of the money. But if you can't understand why government moves at a glacier's pace, it's because the speed of government means things get slipped in that you don't expect, and they can turn things around so quickly that you can't stop it. We see Donald Trump and his agenda, the Project 2025 agenda, as many folks see it as something that's radical, something that is institutionally bad, and it's changing things for the worse at a pace that cannot be undone or not be nullified in something that's easy to do. Just being fearful of existing is what's happening right now. And if you're not a Protestant white dude from a good family, and some of the poor white dudes aren't going to get it this as well, there will be problems. There will be issues. There's things going on. If you're in a protected class, protected for a reason, you're not a Protestant white dude, you should worry. You should worry about all of these things. No one's coming to save anyone eventually. And the problem is, at some point in time, the conservative Protestant white dudes are going to be picked off as well for other things because they don't quite fall in line as well. This is bad. And for all the jokes we have about Donald Trump not being a serious person, not being a smart person, not being a person with any actual agenda, just kind of rolling back and forth, that makes it even scarier. Because if he doesn't actually have the willpower to do this stuff, it's actually some sort of puppet type things where it's just things popping up and going there. Who's actually in charge? And that guy should be even scarier. Because having a person who just sort of willy-nilly does stuff because he's in charge and no one seems to want to stop him because they like the power as well is a problem. But if someone really is pulling the strings behind this thing, that's who we should really be worried about. And that's who I am worried about. A little long in this hot take, a little quick because of life going on. So we're going to get this thing published, get this thing out here, and hopefully get some comments. It's the comments on the Truth Social post, comments on the new census right now, right here. Let's do a census before the decade's over. And it's a overall commentary on how we're going, how this whole thing is turning. There are so many questions that should not be questions just because they are. And that is what I see as the problem. You let me know what you see as problems, or if you think I'm overdoing it. At least we're not talking about Sydney Sweeney today.